welcome to the Homebodies episode, our first episode that is going to feature the M family and colleagues of ours.
That's right. We have Michelle today and Clay. Michelle is a senior marketing manager at M.
That's right.
And Clay is a senior brand manager at M.
That's
Two important roles that we do need at the agency. The impact that you bring to our day-to-day operation is amazing, and it's not something that we find at other agencies, right?
Absolutely not. Creative geniuses.
That's
Not a common role at most agencies,
That's right.
I'd say. No,
Yes.
Do things a little differently around here.
Well, having that support in-house, it's a game changer, and it was one of the things why Chris and I made the move to M last year, having the in-house support and the fact that I don't have to think about who I'm going to be calling to discuss marketing ideas or brand ideas. And we run it as a business, and the business has to evolve, has to grow. You have to look at the competition, you have to look at the market, and having you in-house, it's a game changer. So I thank you for that support. And
least we could do, man.
Happy.
Yeah.
So before we discuss what you guys do and how you support our business and the agency and the realtors, let's get to know you, because I don't think this is going to be the only session we're going to have together.
Absolutely.
We are going to be having you here again in the future.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
let's introduce yourself to the audience, and how did you guys find yourself doing this at a real estate agency? Let's start with Michelle.
Oh, my turn. Okay. Well, that's a pretty loaded question. I mean, what's interesting about our team is that we kind of all come from different backgrounds, different, we all have different paths basically, and our way of getting here is different. A lot of the times they come from, meeting Justin at some point in time, having a good conversation, building our business based on relationships, basically referrals. So a lot of that is basically who you know and how you found yourself here. And in my case, it's my background is not in the real estate industry at all. I actually worked right out of school. I did an internship in graphic design, which is my field, and marketing communications. I have a degree in both. And basically, long story short, I was working full-time for another company for a decade. It was an internship that turned into something that just lasted a long time, which I'm very grateful for. It was a wonderful opportunity. And then, I was working full-time. I've always had that, always freelanced on the side. A lot of graphic designers do. I worked very closely with actually a supplier who's a very good friend of Justin. And he recommended me to kind of, help out, consult a little bit. And this is like back in the day, like the beginning days of M. I've been, and it's hard to actually pinpoint exactly when I started with M, because it's like beginning days.
The agency was launched in 2014.
2014, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So probably sometime around then. I came in as a consultant. I was, again, working elsewhere. And, really like dead set focused in my role. I've always been that way no matter what I do. And I came in, I consulted. I was recommended, again, by a friend, a supplier, who's still one of our dearest suppliers now. So he recommended me. I came in. I actually had known Justin. Justin went to high school with my brother, with my husband, just way back. We knew each other. So it was a natural fit. I mean, we hit it off right away. The connection's always been there. We got along well. We work really well together. We're both very creative people. So I actually trained employees who were working full-time at the time. So I trained the staff. And then I was in and out. I was freelancing a bit, and then I was behind the scenes. You know that. Yes. I was behind the scenes for a long time, doing a lot of graphic design, social media, a lot of that. And then, at one point in time, I just had to stop and look at my freelance work is really outweighing, what I'm doing in my day-to-day. And it was just this decision that I had to come to and Justin was like, what are we doing, man? Like, we just let's dive in, let's do this. And that was a couple of years ago. And then we just basically decided from there, our number of members or brokers were growing. We just decided, listen, it's time we really build this department. And at that point, we started building out our creative team. I started expanding, started hiring everybody. And I dove in, and I just really never looked back since. It's a really great honor to work with the people that I do. Brokers and our staff, our leadership team, were like absolute best friends. So it's really, really nice. But I'm just, that's essentially how I found myself here.
I have an interesting
trying to keep
story.
it short, but I can't. It's just too much.
Oh, you could keep talking about yourself. That's what we want.
Yes.
I have an interesting story about Michelle. It's that Michelle used to work in the background, so I would always receive emails from her. And it would always be like Michelle and M. And then I finally got to meet her at a Christmas party. She's like, "Hi, I'm Michelle," and I'm like, "Oh, you actually exist," I had no idea because she was, it was almost like télétravail, so she was working
I was
remotely.
working remotely behind the scenes for a long time. My email was actually design.
That's right.
So a lot of people were like, "Okay, this person is from another, not
Another
from here,
country.
another country. She's like working at night," and you guys know me, I'm such a workaholic, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, but.
I actually
work
was
late
convinced.
Hours, and people were like, "No, she's got to be in a different time zone." But
I was convinced you were in a different time zone until
we met.
We met, and then I realized that you live like 10 minutes away from me.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. So that's my Michelle story. But I work with you on a daily basis.
Yeah.
My wife Brenda, who works with me as well, works with you on a daily basis, and huge value to the team.
Absolutely.
And what we do, because at the end of the day, what we pump out as real estate brokers, there's 4 pegs to every listing, like a chair, and one of those pegs is marketing and how we're going to market those properties. And it's so huge. If you don't have that marketing machine behind you, I know for a fact other agencies, as a real estate broker, you have to outsource and find your own graphic designer.
Well, I went through that process.
Yeah.
Chris and I became partners.
Yes.
And I'm a big believer that sales and marketing go hands in hands.
Yes.
I had to find myself trying to outsource someone, and they don't get the vision, they don't get you, so you have to find someone else. Eventually, we built a team that was supporting us. It was very costly, very expensive. And also, one thing that I learned, cheap is expensive.
Yes.
Right? Because you try to run your business cash flow, right?
Yeah.
And having a graphic designer that's not expensive, you find yourself going back and forth like multiple times. So when you get the invoice,
Time is money.
That's exactly it.
It's a tricky thing too to work with somebody who might not understand the industry. Like that's a different.
That's
But
true.
most importantly, it helped the process of going through that process helped me to value what M bring to our operation day to day.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, when I just came back from my trip and we're just entered 2024, and realtors, they tend to change agencies at this time of the year, and they call someone that they know, and I received like a few phone calls. How do you like it at M? And this is what I was basically selling them is that you have the support to grow your business. It's in house. You don't have to look far.
Yeah.
They understand the business, they understand the culture, and you're dealing with 100 plus realtors every single day. So it's no brainer.
And another thing I love is that everyone's like-minded, and we are all around the same demographic and age group.
That's right.
So what happens is, you kind of like understand not only the business, like you're saying, understanding the industry, but you understand like what people are doing. You understand, culturally what people are looking for. What types of platforms they're on, and so on and so forth. I try to ask my kids. I got this from Patrick Bet David, but I try to ask my kids all the time, like, what's popular? Is it Snapchat? Is it TikTok? Because eventually all those kids are going to be our future clients as well. So we have to kind of like
evolve and
get into that.
But before we can dive into that, let's give
of course,
Clay a chance to introduce himself and tell us more.
I wasn't going to let Clay talk, but it's
he's got a very interesting background
Yeah, well, I mean, like Michelle, I don't come from a real estate background at all. when we were talking off pod before, like my kind of first working background in Montreal, I moved here from Ottawa to go to Concordia for communications. And while I was in school, I worked in TV production for a little while. That was like the thing that I really wanted to do. I wanted to work in film and TV and just like get to do creative stuff. And then kind of over that time, you always sort of, one second, you always need to sort of like find work, right? How do you keep yourself affording to live and enjoy yourself, get a few libations here or there as a student. So I started working in restaurants. I got a job as a dishwasher, classic. And I always sort of liked to cook. And so I worked as a dishwasher for a couple of weeks. And then one day a cook didn't show up for work. And I said, hey boss, I could do that.
Wow.
Right? And he was like, oh, well, we don't have anyone to be on the line today. So let's go. Pardon my French, but if you f this up, like, you're fired. But if you do well, then maybe you can have this job. And I guess luckily in some way I did it all right. And so then that led me on a path to work in restaurants for almost 10 years.
Yes. Okay.
So I worked as a cook for a long time. Once I sort of got tired of the grind that is cooking, and cooking is, I got to tell you, is a real grind. I went to wine school. So I got educated in wine. Am I a certified sommelier? No, but for the people who know what this means, I'm WSET 2 certified. So I know enough about wine to get by to work a wine list. So that got me into service, which sort of brought a whole other kind of a set of skills to what my career path was. And then around that time, I just started writing and working with a few friends who at the time had started different companies. So, I worked with people who ran clothing brands. I worked with people that ran holistic skincare companies. I started working with a friend from school who started a branding agency in New York. So they were doing a lot of like consumer packaged goods stuff. So, like a martini in a can, or, like meal kit companies. And I started doing, working on them with their branding, with their copywriting, with their strategy. Then when the pandemic hit and, I was already sort of stopping to working in restaurants, that sort of fell off completely. I went full tilt into freelance work. And so, I was working with between 10 and 12 clients at a time, which was great, but also like my work fell off, but my work ramped up. Like I was working like crazy and I'm doing a lot of different stuff. And it was really taxing because when you work in a creative field like that, especially when you're working for different brands, so much of your job is about switching mindsets, right? So like when I'm in the holistic skincare mindset, I'm thinking in a particular way, right? Like I'm geared towards how do we talk about this product? How do we connect with a certain demographic? And then the next thing might be, we're doing dog tags for Gen Z, right? Totally different voice, totally different objective, totally different way of thinking. So you're bouncing around. That's tremendously taxing on your creative energy. And then actually through our friends at 5 Pound, Riley and I went to Concordia together.
Oh, nice.
And
so did we actually.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We actually went. We didn't know each other.
We have the same major, and we never knew that.
Yeah, we didn't know each other at the same time, I think, too. Right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I was just sort of reaching out to Riley one day, being like, hey man, I'm doing this kind of work. If ever you guys need help, I always really liked the projects that they did, and you do some stuff. They always say in the creative industry, you do one for them, you do one for you. And I was like, it'd be cool to work on something cool with 5 Pound. And Riley was like, well, we don't have anything right now, but we work with this guy Justin. He has a real estate company called M, and they're working on this like M music project, and they need some copywriting help writing the descriptions for the playlist bios.
Okay.
So that was like my intro to M. Was like writing the like description for like the Wednesday workout mix.
Oh, that's
for
amazing.
M music. So like it was like a nothing project for me at the time. I was like, yeah, sure, Justin, like happy to do it. Let me bang this out in a day. Like hit him back with some playlist stuff. He was like, dude, this is great. Nice. Snowballed. We started working together.
Of course.
I would say like within 3 weeks of us starting to work together, I was on retainer. I was working with them, like something like 20 hours a week. And then for the first 6 months that I worked with them, like by the end of that, I turned 30. Okay. And I was like, I'd been married for 4 years, and I was like, Justin, like I don't want to freelance anymore. So I'm giving you notice now that our hours, like I'm scaling back clients and I'm actively looking for a full-time role. So I just wanted to let you know that at some point I may get a job and I won't be able to work for you anymore. And Justin was like, well, what if we give you the job? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I was like, okay, cool.
Such a Justin move.
Yes. Yeah, right? Yeah. So I was like, yeah, for sure, let's do that. And I took the job. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a job offer from a meal kit company called Good Food.
Oh, of course, I know Good Food.
Yes.
And
we used them.
Okay, yeah.
I used them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Good Food was expanding, and they wanted to give me like a kind of a higher position as they were like expanding their offering, and like this is like 2021 or end of 2020, beginning 2021, and so like their business is booming. Their business is booming. So they're just like, let's go. We need you. We want your help. And so I called Justin back and I was like, hey, listen, man, food's obviously a passion of mine, something that I'm interested in. This is just a little bit more up my alley. I'm going to go work with Good Food. And I mean, I only know this anecdotally now, but apparently Justin was crushed by that.
He was crushed, yeah.
And, but he didn't say anything to me. He was just like, you know what, man, you gotta follow what's right for you, respect, all good.
That's Justin.
And then 2 days, like I got my computer and my laptop, my screen, I'd like signed my contract with Good Food. I was like starting in 2 days with them. Justin came back and he's like, listen, man, do what you got to do, but I just want to shoot my shot. And, I won't get into the details of it, but he gave me an offer I could not refuse.
Yeah.
And man, honestly, like the person who would have hired me at Good Food doesn't work there anymore. Good Food is a company that is, I don't know, I think it had its boom, and it's not the same company that it was, or the promise of it isn't the same that it was now. And working with M has been like nothing but just acceleration upwards. Like what we're doing together, working with Justin, working with the leadership team, like Michelle said, is crazy. I mean, we get to do stuff that I don't think people really get to do in their job normally. And also, like in the industry, we're completely unique.
Of course.
And I think that's partly because of the people, like the
100%,
fact that I don't work, I don't come
Yeah.
from a real estate background.
That's right.
We don't approach things, we don't approach brands, and that's always been, my mindset is don't approach stuff from in the box. Try to learn, try to understand your product, try to understand your audience, try to understand the people you work with, but try to bring new ideas, fresh ideas. And obviously that's Justin's wheelhouse. That's his bag. And that's what I try to do all the time is find ways that we can satisfy our requirements as a real estate company, connect with our clients, but also bring innovation and make a brand that feels distinct in the market.
Of course.
Right, yeah.
That is, by the way, I know for a fact that he was crushed because the week that you told him that you were not coming on board, I had a conversation with him. I think we were together. Either we were at my house or we were somewhere else. And he was pretty crushed. And then he told me, you are coming on board. And the reason why him and I were having such an in-depth conversation is because when he told me about you and I recognized your last name, I realized that this is also someone that's, from my community. He's Punjabi as well, right?
Me, classically Punjabi.
Yeah.
The archetype.
And common denominator here, I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but the way you joined M or became a part of the M family is the way we do real estate, and that's through networking.
Yeah, I think about this all the time.
Yeah, neither of you replied to a posting on Monster or Indeed or LinkedIn. You got your positions or came about in the M family through networking and who Mm-hmm. That's how we run our businesses, and that's why
being good at your job too,
of course,
a huge part of it.
You're organically meant to be in real estate if that's the way it happened. Yes, I think or in the real estate industry. That's amazing, and on a day-to-day basis, there's so many things that happen in the background. I know for a fact because when the way things come out at our agency, they're done with so much care and attention to detail, and maybe that's a testament to your background in restaurants.
Right.
I mean, everything that I do comes from a lens of working in restaurants. Like it's just I don't know. I feel like it would be the same if I was in the army. You know what I mean? Like there's a way of doing things. There's an order of operations that just gets cemented in you when you work in that business, and especially when I worked as a cook for a long time, and like. I mean, you guys probably talked to Flip about this too. She kind of came up in the restaurant industry as well. But,
yes, she did. At one of my favorite restaurants.
Yeah. I mean, you know what it's like to work really hard.
Yes.
You know what it's like to eat shit. Because you really get it. And when you work as a cook, I mean, you're working really hard. You're on your feet. It's crazy. You're getting yelled at. You're burning yourself. You're cutting yourself. And the show must go on.
Yes.
Right. And that's a skill set. Like, I don't wish that sort of hardship on people, but it's also like it ingrains in you an ability to just, do stuff you don't want to do. Huge. Because in life and in your work, you're often going to be presented with stuff that you don't want to do, that has to get done.
Yes.
Having that ability to kind of push through that and do it at a high level, right?
Yes.
Is very important.
Despite how you feel. Right?
Despite how you feel.
Yeah.
Despite how you feel. I think service, incredibly important, whether that's client facing or the ability to give people the tools and the support they need in a client facing role to be able to deliver good service. Like, you make it a lot harder. If you cook a shitty dish and you give that to a server, you're making their job harder.
Of course.
Right? And it all comes back around. So understanding how that works, and like I'll try to keep my restaurant anecdotes to a minimum because I have too many. I always talk about like my first day working in kind of a serious restaurant in Montreal. They don't really do this as much anymore, but at the time it was very common to do an unpaid trial shift. So you do your interview. If they were like, all right, this guy seems like he can work, we'll find out if you can actually do this job by getting you to come in and do service one day. And so I was doing my free trial shift, and it was a Friday night. It was crazy busy. We got slammed. I don't know the menu at all. I don't know anything about this. This is my first time stepping into that kitchen. By the end of that shift, we're wrapping up. It's midnight. I'm covered in sweat and grime, and I'm like, that was heavy. Only to find out that the prep kitchen, which was in the like hand dug sub basement, the sewer backed up.
Ouch.
Right. So after my shift, and I'm working for free, right? This is me trying to like earn my right to come back tomorrow to do this again. I'm bailing out sewer water from the basement for an hour until the plumber comes. Not on my own, mind you, but like, I mean, that was like, and then I ended up working for that place for 4 years. And I think that's like, when I mean like eat shit, I mean, like sometimes it's more literal than others, but, I think that experience for me helps me know what it takes to be part of a team, know what it takes to put in the work. And it's very far cry from the branding work that I do, but it allows me to put myself in places where I'm uncomfortable and adapt and find ways to contribute and be productive in the environment that I work in.
It's interesting you say that. One thing that I believe in wholeheartedly is that the toughest situations of your life will build the strongest character.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you were in a situation where you were doing that in the hand dug out basement, and you were literally like managing shit until the plumber got there.
Yeah.
That builds character, because I can name, if you put 10 people in front of me, I will tell you 9 people would walk out and be like, I don't want this job tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I will go flip burgers. They won't do it. And that's what builds character. And I can talk to you about all the crappy jobs I've had, or all the bosses that I've had to answer to, who were everything from racist to, egotistical, arrogant, flat out inappropriate. And it builds character. And it also allows you to appreciate what you have today. When you're sitting in this beautiful M office, right?
Yeah.
And you're able to work with, your colleagues and the brokers at the agency.
Good coffee, nice and clean.
Great coffee. Yeah. Good cocktails too sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, for sure.
And I maybe I'm wrong, but I find that only minority who actually will do what it takes to help to grow a business, to do what needs to be done, even if it's not in their job description. I hear stories from people. I had to let someone go because there's lack of being a team player, and they want to just operate from
definitely.
it's
I say this often, but my dad, he's Punjabi, he's East Indian. My mom is Western Europe mutt. I don't know. I came out Italian somehow, so I don't know if I got that. My parents, they're both career civil servants. We didn't come up like tough. You know what I mean? But that, I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's an instilled work ethic that exists. But
also, you are a byproduct of your own environment. Right? True. So the way how you were raised and the way how things were shown to you, you took that with you and
independence was a huge for me growing up was a huge thing. It wasn't so much that it's like, oh, you want to do something, figure out how to do it. If you figure out how to do it and you want to do it, I joke all the time. I never got grounded. My parents weren't spanking. If I was in trouble, it was like, okay, well, we're gonna have a discussion about it.
Yes.
And if you have a case, you want to bring a thing about how no, we're misunderstanding this or whatever, and we believe you and we think it's good, it's legitimate. Maybe you're not in trouble.
Yes.
Or maybe you're extra in trouble, right? Depending on how you paint the picture.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's for me the character thing is just being able to do things on my own.
And being resourceful in life is the most beautiful thing, right? Knowing that you are independent and you don't have to rely on anyone to get things done.
I call that freedom.
Yeah, it's freedom. Absolutely.
Yeah, I call that freedom.
And many of us don't have that.
Of course.
We get to see it, right?
Of course.
In our industry and let's one of the things that I said earlier, that sales and marketing and branding goes hand in hand, right? Yes, you can have the best tools available out there for you. You can have the best branding. You can have the best marketing. But as a salesperson, which that's what we do.
Yes.
If you're not good at what what you do,
of course.
I mean, it's
it doesn't matter what the brand and the marketing is. Speaking of marketing, Michelle, I have a question for you. What does it feel like to work with so many brokers who are not only in a very high pressure, high driven environment, but we are very demanding, and at the end of the day, it's a very I wouldn't say egocentric, but I would say it's a very personal type of business where our face, our brand, our Instagram, our social media is
everybody wants to be unique, but
everyone wants to be unique, and it's pinnacle. It's me, myself, and I. So talk to me about your day to day. What is it like working with us?
I think a lot of it is in part we talk about the right people too, right? Building our business on referral. Everybody we work with is amazing. So I'll start by saying that. Everyone's great. Everyone's honestly a pleasure to work with. I'm not just saying that. But I think a big part of it too is understanding, and it's something, I come from a very heavy freelance background as well. I've worked a lot with small businesses. Understanding that yes, everybody does want to be different. It's important to be unique in this space, in this industry, but everyone also operates under the same banner, the same umbrella. We have brand standards. We have a lot of things we work towards. A big part of me coming on board too, and when I say expanding our department, is growing the team, ensuring we have the right people in the right roles to execute what those projects are. And a big part of my job is meeting with people. Sometimes people come to me inspired, and sometimes my job is inspiring them, right? So I might leave a conversation having created a whole bunch of work for myself, but happy to do that if it puts somebody on the right path and it inspires them. And we just have good systems in place. It's been a big part of building out this team, is making sure that when I leave those conversations and I've created that work for myself or for my team, to be sure that we can manage that, right? We can be sure that we can execute these deadlines and these projects that we've agreed on, all the while, ensuring everything remains on brand. And we, like I said, systems, we have platforms and things in place to be able to do that, for us to generate projects and create custom work, but also for people to do things that are templated and that are easy to execute on their own. But working with the right people, I guess I would say, is the short answer. The right people, inspiring them, making sure that they can feel unique while still being under our umbrella.
Yes.
Because that does matter, right? People do want to be able to have their own identity, which is hugely important.
support system. It's
The
interesting.
right support, the right people. It makes your job easy. Makes my job easy.
Of course.
Are certain individuals looking for you to give them that identity, or do they come up with their own ideas and then you help them to make it look good?
Careful, Mich.
It's a bit of, I mean, I'm not trying to name out anyone out
it's
there.
fine. It's a fair question.
It's off the cuff, this podcast.
Nothing's off the table, so it's fine. It's honestly, there are some people that come to me with, even time of year is a thing, right? Beginning of the year, it's January. I mean, it's the end of January now, but people come to my team at the beginning of the year with goals, with ideas, with feeling inspired and motivated, being at the beginning of the year. And I mean, part of what I try to do is hold them accountable and check in with them frequently to make sure that what we're doing is also being executed, because we can only take it so far, right? I can only do so much. A lot of it has to come from the individual. And if they're unsure, I'm happy to help them, inspire them and all of that. But if they don't continue to execute it, as the manager of our, marketing team, the creative side of the business, I need to make sure that what I'm tasking my team with is being not only executed, but also it's reaching where it needs to go. People are actually posting what we've created and given them to post. They're actually taking it and running with it. Because if not, I mean, it's a waste of time.
It's resources.
Yeah, it's a waste of resources. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'd also say, the expectation to a certain degree is that people come prepared with what they want to do. But in my background working with the branding agency that I used to work with, you see big companies, serious companies, who don't have hardly any idea what they're doing with their brand. They don't know who they are. They don't know what their objectives are. They're coming, they might have a great product. They might have worked with a great graphic design team. They might have an amazing tagline, an amazing logo, but they don't really know as a brand who they are yet. And so these are people with big budgets who have teams, who brainstorm, who talk about this stuff all the time. They've got a C-suite. We're talking about, in many cases, people starting off in a new business, they're alone, they're solo, and their skill set is maybe that they're good at sales, but the rest of the stuff is it's important to their business, but they don't have the competencies for it. So, I for M and also in our work, I don't mind it at all if a person comes and says, help me define who I am in my business, because I'm equipped to help that person do that. And they might not be equipped to do it for themselves. And that's what we do for people.
So it depends on the broker, because Ali and I talk about this often. There's really two types of brokers in this business. I would say there's three. I won't touch on the third, but I'll touch on the two. The two are the broker that wakes up and treats this like a job. Yeah. So they wake up and they say, it's been 2 weeks, I haven't sold a house. I need to sell a house.
And that's working in the business.
That's right.
Right.
Yes. And they're working in the actual business. So that's broker A. Broker B is the type of broker that has a company, has a business, has a machine behind them, uses the resources effectively. Brand manager, marketing manager, social media, accounting, and whether they have a team or not, they have metrics. They know that we are going to pump out 12 newsletters. We are going to do one reel a week. I talk to Kyla often that I want to do more reels. I want more followers on my Instagram. These are things you have to do. And one thing I've noticed is, whether it's with Michelle or someone else, is that brokers will, not only in our agency, in general, in this industry, they will start off January almost like that whole gym phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. They'll say, oh my God, new year, new me, I need to change. I need to do this, that, and that. However, a lot of brokers will come out and all of a sudden start doing phone to face, so camera to face, and they'll do tours, or they'll do videos, or they'll pump out more social media, and then a few weeks later they're back to their old tricks.
The gym analogy is perfect, because the gym's not that complicated, right? If your goal is that you want to have a transformation, the two major working pieces are consistent exercise and diet.
Of course.
Right? And on the marketing angle, you need to have your strategy, and also you need to invest in your marketing, right? When you said before, cheap is expensive. Yeah. It's the same thing as you're not going to get results. If you're working hard at the gym, you say, I got a great strategy, but after every gym session, you go home and you have a milkshake and burger and fries. Like you're negating all the work that you put in. Yeah. It's the same thing. If you have an amazing marketing strategy, but you don't put any resources behind it, and budget can be different, right? Like when I say budget, it doesn't necessarily have to be financial resources that you're putting in. If you don't have the money, well, the trade-off is time. Right? You got to be out there, you got to put the work in, you got to be creating the content, you got to get on later, you got to do all that kind of stuff and plan your social strategy, plan your marketing strategy, figure out how you're going to door knock, do all that kind of stuff. When you have budget, then it's allocating resources, allocating funds to the strategies that you want to pursue. That's a thing when you talk about the brokers who are in the business and not working on the business. When I sit down with them, like the very first thing that I say is, you have to understand that you didn't start a job as a real estate broker. You started a real estate business. Even if you're an individual, even if you don't have any business going on right now, you are the business.
You are the business, yeah.
So it's your obligation to treat your business the same. Like I would give the same advice to anyone. Someone's saying, I came up, I want to start a shoe company. You're like, all right, great. How are you different from your competitors? What market do you want to work in? What focuses do you have?
I bet you most of them can't even answer those questions.
They never know. They never have any idea because no one in school, nobody poses you that question.
Of course.
Right? It's just like, here's how you legally can do the job without getting in trouble. And here's like kind of the mechanics of how this job works. But the job is one thing, right? When you come from a client perspective, like my expectation as a client with a real estate broker is that you know how to do the job.
Of course.
Right? And I expect everybody who's a real estate broker knows how to do their job. So when I'm choosing who I'm working with, it's how I feel about them, how they represent themselves, and my ability to think, how can I connect with this person, and does this person understand my needs, and can they fulfill the goals that I have, right? And that's your branding, that's your marketing, that's saying, for Ali and Chris, we know the West Island. We sell family homes in the West Island. If you want to, if that's what your goal is, we do that. And you guys work very hard on, not only are we extremely professional, but we know what we're doing. For you, it's if you want to get in, if you're investing in pre-sales, I'm the guy.
Yes.
Right? I invest heavily in that. That brand is developed. That brand is rock solid.
Yes.
When you're starting off in the business and you say, well, I just want to take whatever I can get.
Yes.
It's very weak.
Of course.
It's a very weak standpoint to be.
Well, I have a lot of real estate brokers aspiring and already in the business outside of our agency, more than inside of our agency, that reach out to me for advice. And when I ask them basic questions, they can't answer them. So I'll ask them, first off, how much do you want to make? They don't know, or the number is very low, so it's not even a business. At the end of the day, it's a job. The Greater Montreal Real Estate Board has about 15,000 members. It spiked after COVID. Out of those 15,000 members, I can name hundreds to you by first name that are either part-time or only sell 3 or 4 houses a year. And what happens with that is that first of all, the entry level into this industry is very low. So it's changing now, but it used to be very low. And what happens is it dilutes the type of quality that is out there. So you will have quality in certain sectors, but then you will have a lot of people that, like I said, wake up and say, I haven't sold a house in 2 weeks. I need to do something today. Instead of just, go to the gym for 3 hours and walk around.
Having your routines, I think, is key, right?
Yes. And touching on what Michelle said, name me an agency anywhere in Montreal or outside of Montreal for that matter, where the marketing manager holds you accountable and follows up with you. If I am at another agency and I find someone at $65 an hour to do my ads and my social media for me, I can guarantee you that person is never following up.
Yes.
I bet you that person doesn't even follow me on Instagram because they don't care. They are going to bill me for the work they do. They are going to pump out ads for me. None of the ads are going to have consistency. They're not going to look the same. And my agency is not going to care because at the end of the day, it's not their employee. and I'm a subcontractor at their company. So
That's right.
these are the types of things that not only do Ali and I and the other brokers, I'm sure, at the agency value, and we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
We were talking about door knocking yesterday. If Ali and I are not prepared with what we are handing to the person opening the door, then the work you two have put in is going to waste, because you give us the ammunition to print out that content, create really nice folders, and then hand those
Well,
folders
I think the interesting thing is, like, the work doesn't start when you wake up and decide I'm going to door knock today. The
No.
work starts when you plan out, what does my year look like? What does my quarter look like? What does my week look like? When am I going to door knock? How am I going to do that? Where am I going to go? What am I going to hand them, right?
Absolutely.
You
And
need
that's the beauty when
production
you have-
time.
yeah.
You need a concept. You need
Yeah.
a strategy.
That's
you
right.
need factor in, again, design time, production time, all of these things. And then we're here also telling you guys, like, hey, everything's got to be bilingual. You actually can't legally say this, or maybe you should think about this,
Of
or
course.
something like that. But
Setting tangible goals too.
goals, yeah,
Of course.
exactly. And then I'm going to ask you, how did it go when you door knocked yesterday? Like,
Well, I door knock in January usually, but I haven't door knocked recently. This gentleman across the
I did.
table from me has. So he'll share how it went.
Listen, I mean, again, it's and this is something. That's the beauty when you work on the business, not in the business. In the business, you're a slave. You're a transactional person, right?
Yes.
And you panic when you have nothing going on, and you blame the agency, you blame your support system. But when you work on the business, you have the ability to forecast what your year is going to look like. You have the ability to create multiple pillars in your business,
Yes.
right? From traditional marketing and digital marketing, which I believe they both go hand in hand. I hate printing flyers, but they work. That's the reality.
Yeah.
They work,
Yeah.
right? They work, and I'm able to know what's my return on the investment.
Yeah.
We spend X amount of money, and my return is this. The thing with the digital space, you have to keep investing because it's more for like a brand awareness, right? Mostly. Very hard to know what's your return on your investment, but this is the new landscape that we're in right now. The beauty of the other thing also, like last year, I got a phone call from a client who's a client now. She said, I've been following your page for the past 4 years.
Beautiful.
I love how you guys present your products. I get to see you. I get to see Shelly, Ashley, Chris. I'd like to work with you. We sold her property. We sold her mom's property, and they bought property. So you just don't know when
Yeah.
that phone call is gonna come.
So I am a huge believer in social media marketing because your cost of acquiring a customer is zero. So if I go out on Instagram and I do an amazing job on Instagram, now I have Kyla working on Instagram and social media with me. But whether it's her or me or her and mine ideas coming together, my cost of acquiring a customer is zero because there's no money going into Instagram other than time. As far as flyers, printing out flyers and sending them costs thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm an open book. I can tell you I send out 75 units per month. So I send out 7,500 flyers per month. And a lot of times I'll meet a client and I'll ask them and they'll say, I'm sure I get your flyers. But the flyers are like the billboard. You got to do the flyers with the social media. You might have to do the billboard eventually. You have to door knock. You have to have your sign up. Like there's so many different pillars.
It's your touch points, right?
It's touch points, yeah.
That's it.
And that's why I mentioned you have to have multiple pillars.
Of course.
Going at every,
Yes.
working at any given
But
time.
that's a business.
Yes.
But when you say, I'm going to knock on 10 doors this week, next month I'm going to send out flyers to 100 homes, and then I will post something on my Instagram in about a week. It works, but you're kind of buying a job. Like for lack of other terms, it's a job at that point. It's not really a business.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what you're describing is exactly it. Like, I'm going to tie it back to restaurants. I'm sorry, I apologize. But, I remember a friend of mine saying, well, if I open a restaurant, it's not to get rich, it's to have employment until I can't work anymore. And that's because the margins are thin. But when you're talking about people who are kind of buying a job, I mean, that's exactly it. They're not structuring themselves in a way where they're growing wealth and they're growing a business and they're making it. They're not actually setting themselves up to have the life that they want, which is that autonomous sort of, I can work this much, I can take a vacation, I can go to the gym, I can have the schedule I want. You're not building that if you decide that you're going to just open a business to give yourself employment.
I'm a huge believer of designing your life.
Yeah.
And
you talked to me about that.
Yes. Yeah. And the way I designed my life works perfectly for my wife and I. But the way to design your life is by the main pillar, which is financial freedom. If you want that type of a life, right? So if you want to maintain your own schedule, or you want to go to the gym every morning for an hour, or so on and so forth, at the end of the day, you're kind of designing your life, And I often think of marketing and branding and how important of a role it plays in my business. And the more I look at our industry, the more I realize that our industry is the only industry that shows their work on Instagram and social media more than anyone else. And I'll tell you why. Because I have friends that are wealth managers, financial advisors, or work in banking, even mortgages. They are not allowed to do or post or share the types of things we do as real estate brokers. What we do as real estate brokers is we go to a visit, we'll post it. We're at a notary, we will post it. We have an accepted offer, we will post it. Financial advisors, wealth managers, bankers cannot do this. You'll never see your dentist, taking a selfie with his patient, talking about, the 4 wisdom teeth he just pulled out, right? But real estate brokers, we love showing what we're doing on a daily basis, and that's why it's so important. Marketing, branding, social media, they're so important to our industry more now than ever, that it's almost like if I know a real estate broker that does well that's not on social media, I think right away they're not doing well. That's what the industry has become.
The reverse is true too, though.
Absolutely.
It could be, yeah.
The reverse is true, because I know for a fact there's big time real estate players in Montreal that don't even have social media accounts.
I have like 5 people that I know in my own environment who are very successful, and they have almost no social media presence.
Yes.
But this is going back to, what we have discussed is all the marketing tools. This is how we recruit new clients, right? But you have keeping up with your existing clients, retention.
I think that's the
service.
The goal
service,
too.
Exactly.
Building the business on referral is where you want to be.
These individuals, they know how to take care of their existing clients.
Yeah.
They're big on retention.
Yeah.
It's not expensive.
Of course.
Marketing, and putting money into the business. It's recruiting new clients. It is expensive method.
We're in the service industry.
Yes.
Ultimately.
That's right.
We are, like restaurants.
Yeah.
Like restaurants. I mean, look, the product costs a whole lot more.
Of course.
But the experience is paramount, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Of course.
And especially because of the price point, right? Like, you're paying a commission, and that percentage can be massive.
That's right.
Of course.
And so you want to make sure that you're working with someone that gives you value.
Of course. Be knowledgeable, provide excellent service, focus on the experience, and of course invest in your brand, and that's how you grow.
Yeah.
Right. So everything is related.
Focusing on the experience is hugely important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
It's so big for us.
There are so many of us out there,
Yeah.
right? Why am I better than the other person, right? And that's how we differentiate ourselves.
Focusing on experience for me is huge, and I often use the difference of getting a coffee at Tim Hortons and Starbucks.
Yeah.
Sure.
I use that example, and the brand aesthetic and the actual experience of walking up and getting your coffee and them asking for your name and then writing your name on, your coffee cup. But another example is I remember going to the Four Seasons with my kids and my wife, and I pulled up to the Four Seasons and the valet took my keys from me, and the kids had ate McDonald's, and there was McDonald's in the back seat, and there was bags and there was cups, and I was telling my kids, I said, before we get out, please get your bags and your cups. I don't want them staying in the car overnight, right? When the valet parks the car. And the valet actually said to me, he said, don't worry about it, sir. We will take care of all of the leftovers and the garbage in the car, and we'll give you a complimentary car wash. I didn't ask for it. He valeted the car. He added that to it. Granted, you're paying a premium to stay at the Four Seasons. You'll never get that service at, the Marriott Courtyard.
Yeah.
Right? Where you're going to park your car yourself. You're going to walk in. Your room might not be ready. Right? So it's what type of a service are you offering your clients, which in return will actually change the type of clients you work with naturally. Because if you're a certain way, you will have certain types of clients gravitate towards you. And I'm a firm believer of that.
And they both do business. Starbucks does a lot of business.
Yes.
So is Tim Hortons, right? You have two types of consumers.
100%.
You have a consumer who will focus on the price, what they're paying,
Yes.
and others will just focus on the experience.
Yes.
So it's as a service provider, which audience do you want to work with?
Yes.
And focus on. I know realtors who just who will discount their commissions,
fees,
and it's all about volume, and they do very well. It works for them, good for them.
Yeah.
And then you have others who are focused on the experience, and they will not work lower than a certain rate,
Of course.
and they do well as well.
But they're going to get a totally different level of service.
Yes.
They're going to be there for every visit.
Yes.
There's not going to be a lockbox on your door.
Yes.
You're not going to have strangers walking into your home. Everyone's going to remove their shoes. They're going to clean their hands with hand sanitizer post-COVID. You're going to get weekly follow-ups. You're going to get feedback. Those brokers are attentive. And then there's people that really want no frills, for lack of other terms.
Yeah.
Michelle, question for you as we're starting to slowly wrap up. What advice would you give from a marketing standpoint to brokers that are listening to this podcast? Like, what are some things that you would suggest brokers do more of and maybe not refrain from doing, but where should they
That's a good question. I mean, I think ultimately I would say as we said, treat your business like a business. Treat it make sure that your foundation is solid before you start just sharing what you're doing on a day-to-day. That's all great, but you need a strategy behind it. I always, tell people to take a step back, look at your year as a whole, look at your business from a bird's eye view, and what do you want to do? What are your goals? Treating your business the way it deserves to be treated, I think is going to just translate across your platforms. Be present on those platforms. It's hugely important to make sure your marketing strategy is complete. It's not just one thing and one thing alone. And if you are going to do something like, we talked about postcards, anything you do it with consistency and intention, just to, be sure that what you're doing is actually being communicated properly. And work with the right people. Surround yourself with the right people, and it's hugely, hugely important.
I would repeat this, be consistent with what you do.
Be consistent.
Yes.
Consistency is the key to everything, honestly.
Yeah.
Clay, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
That is from a consulting standpoint.
Yeah.
If I was a new real estate broker or aspiring broker, and I'm listening to this podcast right now, as someone that has done consulting work and your background in branding, what advice would you give a real estate broker?
First thing that I would say to them is understand that the business is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of people come in, especially, we all saw it in the pandemic era.
Of course.
This is not an easy buck.
No.
Come in prepared to spend money, because that's the reality. It is incredible. You're up against the odds when you start, and you're going to need to invest to create distinction to create brand awareness, as you're saying. There are avenues that are less expensive, but they're less expensive in funds, money, but they're more expensive in time and commitment. So be prepared to work very, very, very hard. And then the other thing I would say is know yourself from a business standpoint, like Michelle said. Mm-hmm. Treat it like a business, but take the time to do, like I often will sit down with people, and the first thing that I do will be to do a brand audit, right? Let's go over what your brand is. And like you said, I start with the very basic questions and people don't have answers. Do that before you start. While you're in school, while you're getting your license, figure out who you want to be as a broker, what kind of business you want to run, how you want to run it, give yourself measurable goals, and then try to work toward them. And you're going to course correct. Like, you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have successes. That's the reality of work and running a business. But the more that you know yourself and know your brand, the more successful you will be in the long term.
I think it's funny to hear you say that, because these are all questions we ask every new broker that we onboard. Our onboarding process is a lengthy one. We always feel like we talk a lot and we ask a lot of questions, and people are just amazed at what that looks like, right, from joining a company perspective. But it's crazy. I mean, we have a lot of questions for people. We really want to understand what people's goals are, where they're coming from, what they want their business to look like, and how do we help them kind of differentiate while still being under the same umbrella, finding your own identity. So lots of questions at the beginning for sure, but they're all worth answering. It's important to really understand who you are and what you want to do.
It's what we do at M. We do that process with ourselves every quarter.
Beautiful. Where do you see the industry going? More agencies like M, or?
Has to be.
Yes.
Has to be. People are getting more specialized in every industry. So, I try to pay attention to what's going on elsewhere in the world. Mm-hmm. There's more boutique agencies in the States. There's a ton.
Way more.
Canada, we have a problem with large conglomerates. We basically, all of our industries are run by a handful of companies.
Of course.
Competition is good.
Yeah.
I think that's going to come.
Yes.
But I think real estate is going to change, and it has to, because laws demand the way people operate in their lives, the cost of housing. These are all impacts that are all effects that are going to impact the market. But housing is a fundamental part of our lives, and so real estate is always going to be relevant.
Of course.
That's right. Yeah. We have to change and we have to evolve.
Adapt,
yes.
Yeah.
Adapt. That's all.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was great.
Guys,
yeah.
That was good.
You touched on thinking outside the box earlier in the conversation.
Yeah.
I think you thought outside of the good food box, and it brought you to M. And we're glad to have you and Michelle as a part of the team. Once again, this was the first Homebodies episode. Yes. We will definitely have you back on this set, and some of the other colleagues we have at our amazing agency. Yeah. But this was a pleasure. We've learned so much, and we will definitely. This, I would say, is part one of another conversation. We definitely have to have a more in-depth conversation.
Part 2, 3, 4, yes, for sure.
I want to get under that. I want to scratch deeper than the surface. I want to know young Raymond Singh. I want to know Rock and Ali Sweeney.
Yes. Raymond Singh is still young. That's the problem.
Younger. Yeah, I know. I mean, he's about to turn 30. The guy's an absolute beast.
Yeah. But we will definitely get into that. I think we will definitely get into our stories as well, as we move along with this podcast. But it's been great so far.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.